Welcome to the keynote reading of the Cons and Scams Conference. Now, a play by William Butler Yeats, written in 1903, might seem an unlikely feature of a conference devoted to cons and scams in American culture. But the pot of broth has just the ingredients to remind us that there is, after all, nothing exceptionally or uniquely American about the art of the scam, an art whose roots are ancient indeed. The trickster at the center of the play is a figure of primeval wiliness, radiating the promise of an elusive magic always just out of reach. The occasion for tonight's reading is the presence of three remarkable actors, David O'Hara, Claire O'Malley, and Colin Lane, who have been, until yesterday, which was the final performance, have been performing the play at the Irish Repertory Theatre as part of a wonderful program very appropriately titled Three Small Irish Masterpieces, in which the pot of broth shared the stage with Lady Gregory's The Rising of the Moon and J.M. Singh's Riders to the Sea. Three works that together evoke that extraordinary awakening of Irish theater around the turn of the 20th century. The Pot of Broth was one of a number of plays that Yeats wrote in collaboration with Lady Gregory, and that may partly account for its being somewhat different from what we expect from his plays, which tend toward the poetic, the mythic, and the tragic. The Pot of Broth, by contrast, is a prose comedy rooted not in the heroic doings of Cuchulainn and Connachar, but the timeless pranks and tricks of folklore. The story it tells is a very old one, existing in countless variants around the world, one of which you may recognize as the basis of a famous children's book of the late 1940s. It's such a primal story that it can easily be imagined to go back very far, and its point of origin might be anywhere. It starts from the condition of pure neediness and the question of how sustenance is to be obtained by one with no resources other than the incantatory suggestiveness of language and song. In enacting a classic bit of seductive deception, the play demonstrates the capacity of language to make something out of nothing. The tramp who starts with nothing ends up with everything he needs, in exchange for which he offers a momentary beautiful illusion. This makes for rollicking comedy at the expense of a penurious and socially ambitious housewife, not to mention the offstage priest who is going to miss out on his dinner. But the forces set in motion are no joke. Yeats being Yeats, we are always being brought to the awareness of fundamental things. His tramp foreshadows the words with which Yeats would end his poem, The Seven Sages. They understood that wisdom comes of beggary. It's a pleasure to welcome this presentation of The Pot of Broth, and please stay around for some Q&A after the reading.
And this is The Pot of Broth by W.B. Yeats and Lady Gregory.
What sort of the people of this house, I wonder? Was it a good place for me to come to look for my dinner, I wonder? What's in that big pot? Nothing at all. What's in that little pot? Nothing at all. What's in that bottle, I wonder? Milk? Milk in a bottle? I wonder they wouldn't afford a tin can to milk the cow into. Not much chance for a poor man to make a living here. What's in that chest? Locked. There's a good smell of it. There must be a still not far off. What in the earthly world is going on outside? Anyone would think it was the Fianna Heron at their hunting.
Stop the gap. Let's just stop the gap, John. Stop that old schemer of a hen flying up on the thatch as if she was an eagle.
What can I do, Sibby? I almost had my hand upon her when she flew away.
She's out into the garden. Follow after her. She has the wide world before her now.
Sibby, he called her. I wonder is it Sibby Keneally's house I am in? If that's so, it's a bad chance I have going out heavier than I came in. I often heard of her, a regular slave driver that would starve the rats, a niggard with her eyes on kippings that would skin a flea for its hide. It was the bad look of the world brought me here, and not a house or a village between this and Tubber. And it isn't much I have left to bring me on there. There's my pipe, and not a grain to fill it with. There's my handkerchief I got at the coronation dinner. There's my knife, and nothing left of it but the handle. And there's a crust of the last dinner I got, and the last I'm likely to get till tomorrow. That's all I have in the world. Unless the stone I picked up to pelt at that yelping dog a while ago. In the time long ago, I used to have much trouble to find a dinner. Getting over the old women and getting round the young ones. I remember the time I met the old minister on the path and sold him his own flock of turkeys. My wits used to fill my stomach then, but I'm afraid they're going from me now, with all the hardship I've gone through.
Catch her! She's round the bush. Put your hands in the nettles. Don't be daunted.
There's a dinner for somebody anyway, and it may be for myself. How will I come round her, I wonder? There's no more pity in her heart than there's a soul in a dog. If all the saints were standing barefoot before her, she'd bid them to call another day. It's myself I have to trust now, and my share of talk. I know what I'll do. I know what the tinker did with a stone, and I'm as good a man as he is anyway. Now, Sibby, if I don't do it one way, I'll do it the other. My wits against the world. There's broth in the pot for you, old man. There's broth in the pot for you, old man. There's cabbage for me, and broth for you, and beef for Jack the journeyman. I wish you were dead, my gay old man. I wish you were dead, my gay old man. I wish you were dead, and a stone at your head, so as I'd marry poor Jack the journeyman.
Bring it in, Sibby. You'll be late with the priest's dinner.
Can't you wait a minute till I'll pluck her?
I didn't know there was anyone in the house.
It's only this minute I came in. Tired with the length of the road I am, and fasting since morning.
I'll see if there's anything here for you. Doesn't seem to be much. Maybe there's something in the chest.
Hurry now, John, after all the time you wasted. Why didn't you steal up on the old hen that time she was scratching in the dust?
I thought one of the chickens would be the tenderest.
Cock you up with tenderness. All the expense I am put to. My grand hen I have been feeding these 5 years. Wouldn't that have been enough to part with? Indeed, I wouldn't have thought of parting with her itself, but she'd got tired of laying since Easter.
Well, I thought we ought to give his reverence something with a bit of good in it.
What does the age of it matter? A hen's a hen when it's on the table. Why couldn't the Kernans have given the priest his dinner the way they always do? What did it matter their mother's brother to have died? It is an excuse they made up to put the expense of the dinner on me.
Well, I hope you have a nice bit of bacon to put in the pot, along with the chicken.
Let me alone. The taste of meat on the knife is all that high-up people like the clergy care for. Nice, genteel people. No way greedy like potato diggers or harvestmen.
Well, I've never seen a man, gentle or simple, who wasn't glad of his bit of bacon, and he hungry.
Let me alone. I'll show the Kernans what I can do. I have what is better than bacon. A nice bit of ham I am keeping in that chest this good while, thinking we might want it for company. Who's there? A beggar man, is it? Well, you may quit this house if you please. We have nothing for you.
It is a mistake you are making, ma'am. It's not asking anything I am. It's giving I am more used to. I was never in a house yet, but there would be a welcome in it for me again.
Well, you have the appearance of a beggar. And if it isn't begging you are, what way do you make your living?
If I was a beggar, ma'am, it is to common people I would be going, and not to a nice, grand woman like yourself. that is only used to be talking with high-up noble people.
Well, what is it you're asking? If it's a bit to eat you want, I can't help you, for I have company coming that will clear all before them.
Is it me ask anything to eat? I have here what is better than beef and mutton and currant cakes and sacks of flour.
What is it at all?
Those who gave it me wouldn't like me to tell that.
Do you think he is a man that has friends among the she?
Your mind is always running with the she. Ever since they made John Malloy find buried treasure on the bridge of Limerick, I see nothing in it but a stone.
What can you see in it? You that never saw what it can do.
What is it can do?
It can do many things. And what it's going to do now is make me a drop of broth for my dinner.
I'd like to have a stone that could make broth.
No one in the world but myself has one, ma'am. And no other stone in the world has the same power. For it has enchantment on it. All I ask of you now, ma'am, is the loan of a pot with a drop of boiling water in it.
Well, you're welcome to that much. John, fill the pot with some water.
There now. That's all I have to do. But leave it on the fire to boil. And it's a grand pot of broth will be before me then.
And is that all you have to put in it?
Nothing at all but that only. Maybe a bit of a herb, for fear the enchantment might slip away from it. You wouldn't have a bit of sawn loose in the house, ma'am. That was cut with a black-handled knife?
No, indeed, I've none of that in the house.
Or a bit of the fair of Vaughan that was picked when the wind was from the north?
No, indeed, I'm sorry, there's none.
Or a sprig of the otter tolive, the father of herbs?
There's plenty of that out by the hedge. I'll go out and get it for you.
Oh, don't mind taking so much trouble. These leaves beside me will do well enough.
But where at all did you get the stone?
Well, this is how it happened. I was out one time, and a grand greyhound with me, and it followed a hare, and I went after it, and it came up at last to the edge of a gravel pit, where there were a few withered furzy bushes, and there was my fine hound, sitting up, and it shivering, and a little old man sitting in front of it, and he taking off a hareskin coat. Give me the loan of a kippeen to stir the pot with.
Oh! Stop! Hambone!
I didn't say ham bone. I said a hareskin coat.
Hold your tongue, John. If it's death you're getting.
Well, as I was telling you, he was sitting in front of me. And 1 minute I thought him to be as small as a nut, and the next time I thought his head to be in the stars. Frightened I was.
No wonder at all in that.
He took the little stone then, that stone I have with me, out of the side pocket of his coat, and he showed it to me. Call off your dog, says he, and I give you that stone. And if ever you want a good drop of broth, or a bit of stirabout, or a drop of poachine itself, all you have to do is put it down in a pot with a drop of water and stir it a while. And you'll have the thing you were wanting ready before you.
Poachine, would it make that?
It would, ma'am. And wine. The same as the Clare militia uses.
Let me see what it does look like now.
Don't look at it for your life, ma'am. It might bring bad luck on anyone that would look at it. And it boiling. I must put a cover on the pot. Or I must colour the water some way. Give me a handful of that meal.
Well, he's a gifted man.
It'd be a great comfort to have a stone like that.
And there's another thing it does, since it came into Catholic hands. If you put it into a pot of a Friday with a bit of the whitest meat in Ireland in it, it would turn it as black as black.
That is no less than a miracle. I must tell Father John about that.
But to put a bit of meat in with it any other day of the week, it would do no harm at all. But good. Look here now, ma'am. I'll put that nice little hen you have in your lap in the pot for a minute till you see.
Well, It's a good job it's not Friday.
Keep yourself quiet, John, and stop interrupting the talk, or you'll get a knock on the head, like the King of Laughlin's grandmother.
Go on, we'll say no more.
If I'm passing this way sometime of a Friday, I'll bring a nice bit of mutton. Or the breast of a turkey. And you'll see how it will be no better in 2 minutes than a fistful of bog mold.
Well, let me take the chicken out now.
Stop till I help you, ma'am. You might scald your hand. I'll show it to you in a minute, as white as your own skin, where the lily and the rose are fighting for mastery. Did you ever hear what the boys in your own parish were singing after you being married from them? Those that had any voice at all, and not choked with crying, or senseless with the drop of drink they took to comfort them, and to keep their wits from going with the loss of you.
Did they do that, indeed?
They did, ma'am. This is what they used to be singing. Gram o cream o pashtin fion, a creis a haigna e garlam, a creek e giawlem ar blan o hŵl. Is a pia mor la 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 morta, is to some ruin, more ruin, more ruin. Is to some ruin is my grog, is to some ruin is my common gabon. Shema cracking to Agam o the morning.
Is
Some more ruin, more ruin, more ruin. Is some more ruin is my grog, is some more ruin is my common gabon. Shema cracking to
Agam Alamari. I always knew I was too good for you. Is some ruin?
He has the poor woman bewitched.
Did you take the chicken out yet?
I did, ma'am. Look at it here.
How's the broth getting along?
It's grand. It's always grand.
Give me a taste of it.
Give me some vessel, till I give this sky woman a taste of it.
There's a good smell off it, anyway. It's lovely. Oh, I'd give the world and all to have the stone that made that.
The world and all wouldn't buy it, ma'am. If I was inclined to sell it, the Lord Lieutenant would have given me Dublin Castle and all that's in it long ago.
Oh, couldn't we coax it out of you anyway at all?
The whole world wouldn't coax it out of me, ma'am. Except, maybe, for one thing. Now that I think of it, there's only one reason I might think of parting with it at all.
What reason is that?
It's a misfortune that overtakes me, ma'am. Every time I make an attempt to keep a pot of my own to boil it in. And I don't like to be always under a compliment to the neighbours, asking the loan of one. But whatever way it is, I never can keep a pot with me. I had a right to ask one of the little men that gave me the stone. The last one I bought got the bottom burned out of it one night. I was giving a hand to a friend that keeps us still. And the one before that, I hid under a bush. I was going into Ennis for the night, and some boys in the town dreamed about it. And they went looking for a treasure in it. And they found nothing but eggshells. And they brought it away for all that. And another one.
Give us the loan of the stone itself and I'll engage. I'll keep a pot for it. Wait now a minute till I make some offer to you.
I'd best not be stopping to bargain. The priest might be coming in on me. Well, ma'am, I'm sorry I can't oblige you. I have no time to lose, ma'am. I'm off. Well, ma'am, what offer will you make?
Would you not leave it for a day on trial first?
I think it likely I'll not be passing this way again. Well, ma'am, as you are so kind, and for the good treatment you gave me, I'll ask nothing at all for it. Here it is, for you, and welcome, that you may live long to use it. But I'll just take a little bit in my bag, that'll do for my supper, for fear I mightn't be in tupper before night, and you won't begrudge me a drop of whiskey, since you can make all you can from this out.
Oh, you deserve it. You deserve it indeed. You're a very gifted man. Don't forget the caffeine.
Oh, it's here.
Broth of the best, poachine, stir about, wine itself, he said, and the people that will be coming to see the miracle, I'll be as rich as Biddy Early before I die. Where were you, John?
I just went out to shake him by the hand. He's a very gifted man.
He is so indeed.
Oh, and the priest's at the top of the Borean coming for his dinner. Maybe you best put the stone in the pot again. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious for your thoughts on the challenge of doing this play. It's an old play and a play that is not well known, certainly not in New York. I see that there was a time when it was performed quite frequently, but there don't seem to have been many recent productions. And just what was it like working with this material? And
Well, for me personally, it was so much fun. You know. Oh, great. Hello. Hello. Yeah, for me. Yeah, for me personally, it was just a lot of fun. I mean, the language is so much fun. He writes so beautifully, and that's the way people would have spoken in Ireland back in 1903. It was even I remember even my grandparents spoke in a very like almost Elizabethan way. In Ireland, you know, many people say that. Well, Oscar Wilde said that the English invented English, but the Irish perfected it. So I think we'll take that. But yeah, it's great fun. Great fun working on the tramp, and of course conning these two suckers. Yeah, it's quite easy to con them. They're not that smart. Sorry.
What I found very enjoyable about it was that it was almost storybook. I felt on stage, I felt like I was something out of a Grimm's fairy tales or something like that. That was quite enjoyable, and also I think that this play and the other two, you know, are the foundations of Irish theatre, and they have quite a history. And you know, if you think of all the great Irish actors who perhaps played these roles, and I'm not seeing that often now, these plays, and now you're getting a chance to do them. And that, plus the fact, you know, this was the birth of Irish literature or theatre, and that, but on the main stage at the Irish Rep at the moment is a play called Seafarer that was written in 2007, I think, but is the epitome of modern Irish theatre. So you had, on the small stage, you had the birth, and on the main stage, you had what it is today, which is rather exciting and thrilling, you know, and that the recognition that Irish literature, dramatic literature, and literature in general punches above its weight. So that's, for me anyway, I found that very satisfying.
I think the only thing I'd add to that is the superstition in it is what I love, and that was passed down to me from my granny, and it's almost like my religion. So, I mean, there's lots of magpies in Ireland, and when you see them, there's like a poem that you say every time you see them, and they mean different things if you see them in like groups of 2 or 3. So reading this play, it's the superstition that really jumped out to me. And the poetry within it too. There's like a musicality to the language, that there's a right way and a wrong way, and you can hear the rhythm even when you read it, which I love. And the fact that we added the Irish song into it, initially that song that Dave sang so beautifully for you, That's in English in the text, and we made that Irish because we all are Irish, obviously, and we went to school in Ireland, and you learn Irish there. So I thought that was a nice twist that we added.
Are there questions from the audience?
A question for Claire. The flattery that proves so successful in the con game that the tramp is playing. In your reading of that part, what is it that he says that first starts to slip you over into that, into almost sort of believing him? In your mind, how are you trying to play that out?
That's a great question, because throughout the rehearsal process, I was trying to plot those moments. Like the first moment of spark of, he's not just tramp under, because in the production, he's actually hiding under the table, and I'm preparing the dinner for the priest, and then all of a sudden he pops out. So I was trying to plot those moments, and the first one, there's a bunch in order to get the arc, that makes sense, especially with the age difference between Colin and myself. I mean, that was something that I had to work, the two of us had to work through. I mean, my great-grandmother went on her honeymoon with her dolls. So it's a normal thing in this time, right? So the first moment, to go back to your question, is when he says, those that gave it to me wouldn't like me to tell you that, is a moment of, he's potentially connected to some otherworldly thing. Let's see what else he has to say. And then from there on, I mean, the flattery, and obviously he's charming me and telling me I'm beautiful, and I'm like, I've been waiting to hear this. Give it to me. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Again, on that same theme, the idea that people don't want to feel less than somebody else. And I'm thinking of The Emperor's New Clothes, where the king sends his cabinet to check these, you can't see it if you're not pure of heart. And then the debunker comes up in the form of a little boy who says the king is in the altogether. Then all of a sudden the glass is shattered. So to the same question, was there a point where that idea of, I don't want to be conceived as being less pure of heart and not believing his scam,
I think certainly when he brings in the religion aspect of it, that if you put it into a pot of a Friday and it would turn it as black, I mean, that it really seals the deal. Because, I mean, Sibby even says that's no less than a miracle, and I'm going to tell Father John about that. There are still places in the West where people go and worship Saint Mary or whoever, they have certain saints, and they still go to this day. You can YouTube it and watch them worshiping miracles that happened. Lourdes is a place. I don't know, do either of you know any bit more that they can speak to Lourdes?
There's a lot of moving statues in Ireland. Statues move, and everyone goes crazy and visits the statue and says prayers. The Sidhe is very old. The fairies in Ireland are very old, and there are people to this day that believe in them. And I think there's something to it. There is another world. And in terms of Christianity, there was like a thin veneer of Christianity in Ireland, always. Like beneath Christianity was still belief in the supernatural. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the tramp like goes everywhere. Like he uses the fairies to his advantage, and he also uses the Catholic Church to his advantage. He layers it. So, and I think then she's sold, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a very Irish thing to combine the two. Am I? Oh. And what were we talking about? The yoga, the fairies, and religion. The whole thing is the Irish had. I think we adapted our paganism to suit Christianity in a lot of ways. So Claire is right that would have impressed anyone, that the chicken, if it was cooked on a Friday, would turn to mulch because you weren't allowed. Did chicken qualify? You had to eat fish on a Friday. Lourdes. I've been. There's a place called Knock in Ireland where the Virgin period. Yes.
No, I was just thinking about, but now I have a strong word. So what you were talking, that's two things. The first thing is, yes, Irish literature and Irish theater, and I'm thinking about Beckett. I mean, yes, forget about Shakespeare. There's Beckett, there's James Joyce. I mean, who would English language be without that? You don't hear me, okay. But so this is one thing. The second thing that I was thinking about while thinking about what you were playing, but also while thinking about this extraordinary play by an Irishman who wanted very much to, later on wrote mostly in French and eventually later on in English, and this is Beckett, it's Waiting for Godot, and the kind of metaphysical. You called it religious, because it is, of course, this is what is the Catholicism in Ireland, in some other parts of Europe. It's a folk religion. It's very kind of, people's religion. It's not metaphysical, but yet there is this layer of spirituality among some people, as it appears again in the Waiting for Godot, right? When there is this moment of, yes, a hope and waiting and something great will appear, as it is also in Endgame, when they eventually realize that the sky is empty. There is no God. Anyway, I was just thinking that while listening to you and also connecting it really to this conference in a strange way, that there are those question marks here that you pose in front of us, and that's wonderful.
There's all of that, and I remember the first day that we started rehearsals, Charlotte Moore, our director and artistic director of the Irish Rep, said, there's so much rich heritage and history that goes on with these plays, and we need to find the people and the humans within that. And that was, to bring it back to that the original question, it's hard to find at first. So my grandparents founded the Lyric Theatre in Belfast, and someone said to me that came to the show, oh, I bet your grandmother this is one of the plays that she would have been doing. And that meant so much to me. But then I'm thinking, well, I still need to make Sibby a real person today, too. So you've got to find the vanity within it, the selfishness, all of that on top of everything you just said.
I'm reflecting on your remark that your grandparents, it was almost like a superstition. Religion was like a superstition, something to that effect, and you're very pulled to it. And I'm wondering to what extent that falling for the scam could be a religious experience that you really want to believe.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm in Ireland, and when I was a kid, on May 1st, we would bless all the cattle and we would bless all the fields with holy water. But that's not a Catholic thing. That's a pagan thing. But it was co-opted by the Catholic Church, because May 1st is the first day of Bealtaine, which is the old spring Celtic festival, and God only knows how long that's been going on for. So this shit is deep.
you go.
Thank you. And thanks for a marvelous transfixing performance. So I want to come back to the issue of cons and scams as such. Sorry. So it seems to me that in this play, and one can think of other cases, the con is carried out in plain sight, right? I mean, you are asking for the meal, you ask for the chicken, you ask for the herbs, et cetera, and you're doing it without concealment. Alternatively, we have cons and scams, which are, as our last panel emphasized, rely heavily upon concealment, lies, and so on. All right? So I wonder if we can distinguish, at least, between two kinds of cons and scams. One is marked by consummate artistry, an artistry of language, an artistry of movement, such as the case of the guy with the shell game on the street, 3-card Monte guy, right? He's not concealing anything from you, but he's very deft at what he does. Whereas somebody like Bernie Madoff, or dare I say, Donald Trump, and others just lie and conceal without attempting a presentation that's artistic in the same way. Does that make any sense?
Sure, yeah, yeah. Well, like, I think, you know, it's our media, our mainstream media is they do a pretty good job as well of,
Well, it wasn't limiting the case, only
yeah.
using illustrations. That's
Yeah.
But I admire the first form more. I deplore the second form. But the first form compels a certain admiration, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I mean, Sibby had a great time, she had a great couple of minutes, the tramp took her dancing, he sang for her, he made her feel attractive, and so like, it was win-win, I think, for everybody, except for him.
There you go.
I read one, I only read the reviews after, but I read one and it seemed to, it posed the question of whether or not it was a magical stone. And I kind of thought to myself, I did a good job, because that means that he's looking at it thinking the same as he's kind of on Sibby's train of, yeah, this is going to make an amazing broth for the priest in a couple of minutes. So I thought that was interesting too.
But I took your you said he's really good at conning you, but it's all right. It's going to make you happier, or you're going to connect or something. But you were standing outside of the con and just kind of beaming at it. Is that a fair?
Yeah. I think that John, that's my character, is on to the con and is entertained by it too. Yeah. And perhaps is more entertained because he's on to it than an admiring of the tramp than anyone else. I think that's the way it is. I mean, it has to be. He's not given much to say really in terms of dialogue. So, and what he does say, he's told to shut up. And the thing is, too, he's an old fart, he's old enough to be her father. And he's lost his dicturum, as we say, He's got no fallurum, di diddle di durum na. He's got no fallurum, di diddle di day. He's got no fallurum, he's lost his dicturum na. Made when you're young, never wed an old man. So it's sort of like that for me, and this is what happens, I suppose. So yes, I agree with you that he's in on the con and he enjoys it.
Just a little bit. You also permit it, in some level.
Yeah, to some degree, but yeah, I know. I mean, I've thought about that, and I try not to think about it too. How far this is going to go, and I mean, she is smitten, and seduced and that. But I can only go with what's written for me and what's there on the thing. I can't speculate as to, it been this time, 1903. I don't know, you can't, maybe, you shouldn't say, well, that would never happen. You always say, what if it happened? And I'm not going to go there. You go, what if you go there? What happens? But we were only given like 15 minutes, so it was a quickie, it was something she'll remember for the rest of her life. Yeah, so, the next episode is the priest arrives and there's nothing for him to eat.
Or is there?
You have a question?
It's funny, is con like from conceal? Is that it?
Confidence.
Confidence. Oh. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Hold up. We're just recordings.
Thank you. There's, I understand, an Irish tradition kind of related to the sort of traveler that you play here, which is the who provided amusement and distraction and a bit of magic in exchange for his supper, and nothing else happened. But there's also the sort of incorporated storyteller, the Shanachie, who is a traveler, not in the sense of gypsy, but literally just travels, wanders the countryside, bringing news from one village, one town to another, who was born, who passed, and what the priest said about it, et cetera, et cetera. And this is not a con, but it fundamentally tells stories in exchange for his keep, from what I understand. And so we were speaking earlier about the line between a confidence game, which is a scam such as you portrayed here, and somebody who is on the edge of providing something which may or may not be a valuable exchange for what he receives. So anyway, I thought that folks here might not be familiar with the Shanachie, and back in the days in the 1900s, there were not a lot of sources of entertainment, and these folks provided it in exchange for their sustenance, from what I understand. Is any of that relevant to your?
Yeah, that's very true. This particular tramp blurs the lines because he's definitely a Shanachie. He's definitely got the gift of the gab. So I don't think he's such a bad guy, really, because they are getting their value. They're getting entertained, and he walks out with a chicken, a bottle of whiskey, and some vegetables. So I think that was that was a good exchange. But I'm very familiar with Shanachies. There was a lot of Shanachies in the area I grew up in. They're all dead now, but there's some great stories about the fairies and about fairy bushes and about ring forts. Ireland is peppered with ring forts. These forts were built, 2,000-3,000 years ago, and they're still standing. And they're very sacred places. You're not allowed to make any hay or till that land. That's all left. There was a big controversy a couple of years ago in Ireland where they were building a highway from Dublin to Galway, and they were going through Tara Fort, and they wanted to obviously raise the fort and put the highway through, but they decided not to. So it's some Robert Moses, right? Yeah. But the Triborough Bridge is a beautiful bridge, though.
Any other questions?
Can you comment on the Celtic revival that this
part of, the two of them founded the Abbey Theatre as part of the Celtic revival.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how does this particular play fit in with the other 1903-4 plays? You know, at the foundation of the Abbey Theatre fit in?
Yeah, my background as an actor is more rustic, so I'm going to give this to Colin because he's very learned in all that stuff. He's been around a lot longer than I have.
This is a con man. That's a con. Now there's a con. There's a con. I think, you know, I don't know. Factually, I don't know much about, you know, what the first production was at the Abbey Theatre or that. But these plays were written to be the beginnings of an Irish literature movement, a movement that looked to the Irish lore rather than looked to vaudeville and pantomime and Shakespeare being imported from our imperial masters, the Brits. You know, it was to find our own literature, I think, and we had it in Gaelic. And these three people, Millington Singh, John Millington Singh, W.B. Yeats, and Lady Gregory, they were of the ruling class. They were the ascendancy. They were, for all intents and purposes, more British than Irish, but they fostered an Irish culture. They tried to preserve an Irish culture, and they gave birth to a national theatre that produced Irish works. Where The Pot of Broth and Riders to the Sea and The Rising of the Moon fit into that, God, I'd love to be able to say that those three plays were the first plays ever done, but I don't know. You know, I don't even know if anyone has factualized that sort of thing. Never been done together? That's right.
They've never been done all three in this order or together. And Pot of Broth Pot of Broth was written for one of the first performances and for the National Theatre. But Charlotte Moore decided to put the three of these together. So it begins with this, what you just saw, Pot of Broth. Then it goes into The Rising of the Moon, more political, and then ends with Singh's Riders to the Sea, which is tragic. But no, never been done together.
Yes, we're done then. Well, thank you so much.